Hey, welcome back to Trail Trash Garage. I'm Jeff. This is my garage. You know we're in Canada because
A boot. Not a boot. Sorry.
So today we're going to continue on the LTD 440 project. I'll set you up over on the bench and we'll do the Petcock. See how nasty that is. So hold on. So as we can see, it's pretty manky. We'll get our GIS and I'll give that I might have to give that a little whack. So we'll have to see. So that comes out. That's your inner filter. That's actually not in bad shape. We'll clean that up a little bit. That's a rubber O-ring. That's probably flat. Well, it is flat. So it's probably not doing a good job sealing anymore. That'll be something that we'll have to try to maybe source if we can. This is a vacuum petcock, and we can see this because of this back plate. Now, this was a big thing in the 80s, and I hate it. And it's carried through to the 90s. Like the DRZs use them, for example, and they're just terrible because basically instead of having an off version, you've got a reserve, you have an on, and you have prime. Prime bypasses the vacuum and allows fuel to free flow, which is good if you've like had the carb off for service and you've emptied out the float bowl and you want to refill the float bowl. But on reserve and on, it's off on default, and as soon as the engine is started, there's vacuum created. So this vacuum line is attached to something on the engine, whether it's something that creates vacuum. So usually it could be on the carb or somewhere else that when the engine turns over, it creates a sucking force that pulls a diaphragm in here, which we're going to dig into in a minute, and that opens up the passage of fuel. But if that diaphragm perishes, and they do over time because they're just rubber parts, especially if you use an ethanol fuel, they'll perish quicker if they're not ethanol safe rubber, which nothing from the 80s and 90s is. I shouldn't say nothing because that's an absolute, and I don't deal in absolutes, but most. Yeah, so they'll fail, and then all of a sudden, all the fuel in your tank dumps down into your carb, overflows the carb, overwhelms the overflow spout on your carb, flows down the throat into the intake, washes down the sides of your cylinder walls, and into your crankcase, and all of a sudden your tank is down in there. And that can happen over a winter if you're not careful, especially if you fill your tank all the way to the top and then put your treated fuel in. If that fails during the winter, then you could come to the spring and go start your motorcycle and have it hydrolocked, or you know, the rusty walls on the cylinder because all the oil was washed down off of it with the fuel. It's just, I mean, I know why they did it. They did it because there's idiots out there who won't, you know, keep forgetting to turn the damn fuel on or turn their fuel off. So they get going away, and all of a sudden they don't have any fuel in the car, and the bike stalls. They can't figure out why because they didn't turn their fuel on. Or they forget to turn their fuel off, and the pressure, the weight of the tank fuel overcomes the needle seat, and the fuel shut off in the carb, and then it does the same thing. It washes down. Same thing I just described. So it happens. So they decided to do this to take that human factor away. But when this fails, and it fails spectacularly in an unexpected time, so you know, how hard is it to learn to turn your freaking fuel on and off, right? I used to teach the motorcycle safety course, and we used to do a mnemonic, or what do they call that, an anagram or something, anyway, where you put the first letter. So it was fine C, and the first thing on fine C for startup or shutdown of a motorcycle is fuel. That's your fuel tap. So you just get in a habit of doing it, right? So yeah, I'd rather just do that. But that's me. I don't know. I'm not that old, but I feel like I'm an old soul maybe, because I just hate all this stuff. Like anything that they come up with to remove the human factor, to make it easier, it just makes people dumber. And when it fails, it's more costly to fix, or the consequences are bigger when it does fail. So, I can't fix stupid. That's the problem. All right, rant over. Let's get back onto this. So I'm going to grab my screwdriver and I'll be right back. All right, good. That's a good connect. Ooh, look at that. See, JIS, baby. JIS. No stripping. So you can, there's a lot of aftermarket. You can get some aftermarket fuel taps that just have it on and off. So when we do this bike proper, I'll probably look for that. We'll cap off the vacuum. I think the vacuum port is on the carburetors for this. So I think we'll just cap that off of the carburetors. You just put a rubber cap on it. Otherwise the carburetor will have a vacuum leak. And we'll just put a regular fuel tap on this. If we can find one on Evil Bay, Flea Bay, whatever you call it. Yeah, it's like, look at that. Boom, there we go. Just like the diaphragms and the carbs, you just kind of hold this up to the light, but there's a rubber on both sides of it, so, and that just flexes here, see? Sorry, you probably can't see, but it goes, so it looks like it's actually not bad. So, but this is, again, this is something you, oh, gentle. That wasn't gentle at all. Again, this is just something that you don't want to get carb cleaner near. So grab another shop towel here. So yeah, there's like some oil crud in there. I don't know what that is. Just crud. So and then this O-ring again, it seals it. This O-ring right here. It seals into this bore, and that's what actually shuts off the fuel when the O-ring is on the other way. So I think we could probably use a little bit of carb cleaner there. We'll set this aside. We'll use some brake clean on that. We'll use a little bit of carb cleaner to clean out this. Grab us a handy dandy toothbrush. So sometimes what I tend to do is try to break up with the carb cleaner a little bit, and then I'll rinse it off with the brake cleaner. And we'll probably have to dig out the old wire wheel on the Dremel, just to kind of clean this up a little bit more. But that is definitely fuel varnished. And this is what the carb cleaner is good at, is breaking that stuff up. Nothing else gets it quite like carb cleaner. Now it would work even better if we had it in an ultrasonic cleaner. I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner. Someday, perhaps. That's probably okay for now. I'll have to get the wire wheel to add it, but yeah. The sealing O-ring here, we might be able to save this. I don't know, that diaphragm doesn't look in terrible shape. They do make rebuild kits for these. There's the face off. And there's our rubber. Now see, there's lots of crud in there, you can see. So we're going to clean that out. So there's another O-ring there. That's usually in a rebuild kit. And the biggest problem we have with these is, I mean, this is still quite soft and flexible. Like, I'm really surprised that this is not all hard and crusty and whatever. But these O-rings, once they get pushed on by the faceplate there, or by this, then they'll get out of round. You'll see they get distorted. This one's distorted a little bit, but not too bad. And so here's the passages, and this basically, as you rotate this, these two passages will connect. Like, it'll connect two of these holes, right? So that's, I mean, that could be off, you know, and then reserve. Or wide open prime. Like, that looks like it probably is prime, and all the holes seem open. But as you can see, like, once they get distorted, then they'll start gapping two of these slots, so it won't shut off 100%. Cheap Amazon. This is like, if you've watched any of my Amazon series, the cheap Amazon brushes are super cheap, and the shaft shank here is different, so you have to use a different collet. So probably fast forward through this, and you guys don't need to hear it, but I'm just going to clean these up with the wire brush. Now I won't go too aggressive on this. This is a pressure ring that sits over top of this here, and that puts pressure down on this to help this seal against the rubber. These will tend to get really rusty. They're nickel plated. And that's the thing, you got to be careful with any of this stuff. If you're cleaning it up, once rust is on this, the nickel is compromised, and it's just going to rust. And you can clean it off, but it's just going to re-rust because the nickel's gone. That's the rust prevention component of that. So most of the stuff should be sanded back to as bare metal as you can, or acid etched or something like that. If you watch anybody's videos, let me throw a shout out to one of the guys I patronize, the Restoration channel. It's a Scottish guy, and Geez, I can't remember. It's a restoration, but I don't think that's the name of it. It's something restaurant, RRC. So something rescue restore channel. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'll link it in the description. But he takes all this stuff back, whether it's sanding, sandblasting, whatever it is, and then he re-nickel plates everything. And that's what if you're taking something to restore, and you need to keep original hardware in it, if it's not available from your dealer. And it can get expensive ordering all these little bolts and parts and stuff, and what's available, what isn't available, and I tend to go to a fastener shop and buy stainless Allen head versions of stuff, but I'm not trying to keep anything original, right? But stuff like this, you're never going to buy that again. So that's something, I mean, maybe a rebuild kit would come with that, but probably not. So once that's all rusty and corroded, painting it won't work, because the fuel is eventually gonna eat at it if it's around something that's got fuel on it all the time. Now that's in a position where maybe it won't. But again, if you're moving this around and it's supposed to provide pressure, then it's just going to keep moving and keep scraping, and it's going to scrape any of that paint that you've got off, and it'll rust again. So nickel plating is the best, but I'm just not set up to do it. I've never done it. It's maybe something I'd like to do in the future. I think I've mentioned that in other videos. So yeah, but I just wanted to mention that painting will bring some things back that don't need to be, have friction on them or be near corrosive fluids. But nickel plating is really the only thing that gets stuff like this back and keeps it. So just an FYI. All right. So we'll clean up these screws. We'll clean up the spring a little bit. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I like this. These brushes they're pretty harmless to that sort of stuff. I mean, you could take that over to the big wire wheel and really get that down to the metal. But again, it's going to it'll remove the nickel, what little nickel's left on that. So that's a faceplate. You probably could get away with painting that there's not going to be much, on that. But we'll probably leave it the way it is for now. Just gently. I feel like I say that all the time, gently. But unless you want to just go replace some parts, kind of what you got to do. You got to be gentle. All right, let's give this a little shot. Not bad. All right. Got some WD-40 on this sucker. So WD-40 is mostly kerosene, I believe. It doesn't hurt the rubber much, and it's usually a pretty good cleaner, degreaser. I've heard other people say this, and I guess I found this in my own experience, that it's a better degreaser cleaner than it is necessarily a lubricant. So there's lots of come lately, liquid wrench and all this stuff like that they claim it's a better penetrating oil. If it's not too tight, like we're talking like a seized rush, like I find this stuff is a better lubricant. 3-in-1. It's not. I find that it penetrates, rust, cleans it, so it does everything that WD-40 says it does. But I find it's just a bit of a heavier oil, so I think the penetration is just slightly less on it, but the lubrication is better. So I use 3-in-1 oil a lot. I think it's pretty good stuff. All right, so we'll try this. I don't know. Like, again, we didn't really replace any rubber parts in it. We're just going to put it back together and we'll try it. Now, the reason you take this off when you do the vinegar trick is because vinegar will eat that crap and it'll ruin your Petcock. Like it destroys the aluminum. It'll pit the aluminum after a while, and it'll destroy the rubber parts and stuff. So shoot some card cleaner through that. Follow up with some compressed air. You can take that right out of there, and basically you just push it through, and you fold it up so you can actually see the hole there. But I don't think we're going to do that and risk damaging it more than it already is. But if you get a rebuild kit, that's basically what you're going to do. All right, now these things they're keyed, so they have these little posts on them. Okay, so line that back up. So post there, and post there, and post there. So they're not like, see, these ones are here, and these ones are up like quarter to corner. So that way you can't put this on the wrong way. This goes in here, you seal against that. Boom, here we go. So that sits in there fine. And then this, boom, goes like that. Vacuum port that. Yeah, I think that works. Like I sort of can feel it, I think. What's going to keep that thing in there? That. All right, so we're going to go in there. Sometimes you can get, if it gets distorted, sometimes you can get away with like flipping it around. So if like one's hollowed out, like we got, these two are distorted slightly. So if we put those over here on the inert side, sometimes you can get a little more life out of them. All right, now you know which way that's going to go, because you can't, like there's it's keyed here and here, and then the faceplate's keyed here, and so you can't go up anymore. You can only turn, and you want to turn it through on over to reserve. So prime to reserve, it needs to go in this 180 arc, and that keeps it from going in that 180 arc. If you've got this the other way around, then you can turn it the other way, and well, that's no good. So that's an easy way to tell, you know, which direction that goes. All right. Dead battery. Yeah, so I was saying, I don't know if that'll come back at all. We'll use it now. You can use a bit of sealer around it. It's pretty flattened out, but we'll see if we can get an okay seal. And then these washers, of course, go right there and help the bolt seal. You know we're in Canada because
a boot. Not a boot. Sorry.